that I tried to like. And after after 20 years, I pulled the album out, and I kind of ride for that album right now. I think that's the best album of the 90s for Prince. I mean, the first half of the song, just rocks. I mean, he goes from this interactive sound with Chaos and Disorder, with Rosie. That's actually the hardest part for me, because I've never really liked Rosie Gaines. What? So trying to divorce, yeah. So I've always tried to divorce her voice from his music, but it's very hard to on those earlier albums, like especially Diamonds and Pearls. But he goes right into what not the same December, but I Like It There, which I really like. I like Dinner with Dolores. I like the 12-inch. I like the graphics that were used for that 12-inch. The Same December, Right the Wrongs, Anna Lee. Kind of goes off the rails a little bit for I Rock Therefore I Am. I do like Into the Light. I do like I Will. I do like the Dig You Better Dead. I guess the sleeper song for me on that whole album is probably I Like It There. And the worst song for me in that album is maybe Dig You Better Dead, which I don't particularly care for, But it's really grown on me. I'm glad I gave it another chance, and I think it's the highlight of that. It's so ironic because that was the album that was just a big F you to Warner Brothers. He was just like, I'm out. Shut off the lights when you decide to leave. The cover was, the 1999 cover that was broken.
Right. He
had all of these strange Polaroid type shots inside where, there was a syringe with money going into it. There was something that you really don't know what it is, what a heart or something like that was in a toilet. And it was his public farewell, I hate you, forget you, don't ever talk to me again, to Warner Brothers, and a pure disregard for the fans, I think. But then he actually promotes this album. He goes on to the Today Show and does 3 songs from the album. He goes on Today a few times during that year. I think that the performance, he went on Brian Gumbel's last show dressed as Brian Gumbel. But and he's essentially promoting this material for an album that on the surface he doesn't seem to really care for.
Did you find it odd that a record company would release that album like that? At least with the imagery that he presents them to with the artwork?
I don't, because, and I go back to the whole mom and dad fighting thing, It's like Warner Brothers is saying, okay, if you want to act an ass, no problem. We'll put the album out and let the people decide how you look.
Yeah, I just find it so interesting because to me that hurt. Yeah, I remember this album. I don't think I was doing the podcast at this time, but I was doing reviews online, and I trashed this album. I thought it was just ridiculous.
But you like it now, right?
Looking back at it now, yeah, there's songs on it. I know, right? But at the time, I was just like, this is... Because, again, I just took off with the vibe I was getting from him. It seemed like he just could give a fuck. And, yeah, I'm just throwing... And even I think it says, it's written on there, this album was never intended for the public or something like that. So, I mean, who does that? And I was just like, man, this is crap. I remember, I got this album from... Michelle Dinicello, her manager happened to be in town. Me and him were cool, and he had it before it came out. He said, "Man, I got something for you," and I was so hyped. And I remember listening to it, and I was like, "This is what." Like I was like, "Eh," and to me, it just seemed like a Nirvana ripoff on some of the songs, and I was like, "Eh." But I agree with you. Now, yeah, there's some tracks on here. I Will. I think I love that. The Light. I think they're hot. Jehan, what do you think of Chaos and Disorder?
I mean, my mum always said, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. There's nothing positive I can say about it. Nothing. What I can say, actually, you brought up a good point. I agree with you. I also felt it was very weird that Warner Brothers were happy to just put out the cover art in the way that they did, but I think at the end of the day, it made him look more like an idiot than them.
Exactly.
And I think at the end of the day, they're like, okay, well, if nothing else, the controversy will probably help sell something or help gain some sort of notoriety here. So they may have looked at it like there's no such thing as bad publicity. And in fact, at the time, I remember reading an article with a unnamed executive from Warner Brothers who said, anonymously, who said, to be honest with you, we're glad for the break of him. He is very, very, very difficult. And, he'll call us up at, he's got our home numbers or whatever. He'll call us up at 2 a.m. saying, yeah, I need a rhinoceros and I need it painted lavender in the parking lot tomorrow, and it's like, what the hell? How do we do that? And there were people who were employed to just service these requests, but I'm sure that they just thought whatever would help them earn some money would be good enough. But yeah, for me, I can't really even comment on it.
All right, Big Sexy.
I think a lot of it has to do with he needed to fulfill the agreement to get his exodus. Hey, play on words, from Warner Brothers. They wanted new material, and they wanted a couple of appearances promoting it, and that is exactly what he gave them, and then he was out. It would not have been in their best interest to tinker with the album art because, labels, you can't do that. And that would just further strengthen his position. And Warner, for their part, was like, you know what, let's just put it out. He's going to look bad, and we'll do our greatest hits package anyway and make money on that. And it was just the end of a messy breakup.
All right, Big Ken.
I mean, do you really got to come to me, bro? You know what I'm going to say, man. I love this album. I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat with Arthur. It is a rocking album. I mean, this is the kind of record where you can just go in the car and just turn the volume just way up, you know what I'm saying, and just rock out to it. And I love it. To me, there's a rawness to it with certain tracks like the title track. I like it there. That's I hadn't heard in some years prior to this. And then I also like it because, again, a lot of these, we talked about it before, Gold Experience, Calm, Chaos and Disorder, some of the tracks ended up on Crystal Ball. They're all from the same, like with that, all these tracks are written in the span of a year and a half at most. And I think it's a good album. I think what hurt this record and hurt a lot of the records before that, it's perception. It's just the way it was presented, and it was the lack of FaceTime from Prince, so it gave people that notion that, yeah, he didn't care. But I think at the end of the day, what happened is on both sides, like he just said, it's the end of a messy breakup, end of a divorce. And by that point in time, both sides had gotten fed up with each other and just like, all right, you just go, I'll just go. And that was it. But it's unfortunate because these are some good albums, man. These last three records, they get overshadowed by this whole Warner Brothers slave thing. But I listen to them a lot. In fact, as I've told you before, Mike, I tend to listen to them all together. Like, I put them in one huge playlist, and you can just throw them on random, and to me, they all fit together. So I love it.
All right. The next album, we're going to move along here, and I think it ties into maybe why he was doing some promotions for this record, because that same year, Prince drops Emancipation, which is, the album, according, if you listen to Prince, is the album he was born to make. This is a very ambitious 3 CD album. This comes right off the heels of Chaos and Disorder. This is Prince free. He's emancipated from Warner Brothers. Now he can do the things that he wants to do and isn't answering to anybody. It's a lot of work to take in. This was a very promoted album. This was the first album where he really went in on the promotional sort of tip and was doing, he did the whole thing with Oprah. He was on numerous TV shows. He was calling radio stations. I remember he called my local radio station here and was, yeah, this is Prince, and I want you to get out and get, he did an interview. I mean, so he was really, beating a trail. And I imagine that this is his baby, so he was going to do whatever it took to make this thing successful. I'm not going to give my take on this album yet. I'm going to go to Big Ken again. Big Ken, Emancipation, a lot of build-up for this album. And let me put this before we get into it. The internet was alive and well at this point. AOL was very big at the time, and there was a very big Prince community online. I will say, arguably, Prince himself was a part of the online community at this time, as was Maite. They used to do Paisley Park chats every Sunday night. He mentions that on the song, right? My Computer. That was a heavy thing back then in the community, and they were actively on there asking people, like, what song should I cover for Emancipation and different things. There's a lot of stuff going on online. Big Ken, Emancipation.
Yeah, you know what? I like this album. I was into a lot of the hype that we were all into at that time, expecting this. You know, I heard the statement, you know, this is the album he was born to make. And so I'm like, oh, word? That's what it's like? You know, and so I'm like, okay, I'm expecting that, you know, he's going to drop, you know, some of the old style stuff. You know, I was hoping and praying, like, man, I want some of that old Sign of the Times type flavor to come back. And then again, and it was released on my birthday too. So I'm like, so it's got to be good. And so I got the album, and for the most part, it was good. But I think the problem is you have 3 discs of material. He could have really consolidated this down to one super strong disc, right? There's filler.
Definitely.
There's filler on each disc, right? But there's some stone jams on each disc too. So he could have really condensed this down to one album, and it would have been great. I was slightly a bit disappointed that I didn't get the old sound that I wanted, but I had pretty much already given that notion up, you know, a couple years prior. So that was just a little hope that I had on the side. I think my only real problem that it took me a while to get over is that it took me a while to get used to this new style of production, particularly the drum sounds. You know, sounds like he was using these processed, you know, drum sample type things, and it didn't sound right to me, especially coming off Chaos and Disorder and Gold Experience, where you had John Blackwell and Michael Bland, and you had those guys playing real hardcore drums, you know. So it took a minute to get used to that. But overall, I think this is a decent album. It could have been an excellent album had he just condensed it.
All right. Jehan, was it too much?
The 3 discs definitely were too much, but I'll surprise you. I actually liked the album.
What?
Yeah, no, I did. Believe it or not. Seriously, I was surprised. I'm still surprised. I liked it. I remember when it came out, I was like, yeah, whatever. I don't want to hear another Prince album ever again. And my cousin Rusty, he got it, and he was like, "You're gonna want to hear this one." And I was like, "No, whatever." And I didn't listen to it. And we had like a party at his place on New Year's Eve that year, and he was like, "Leave the party, come to this room, and just listen." And I listened, and I stayed the whole New Year's Eve basically listening to that with him, and it was just, I mean, from Jam of the Year right to the end. I like the whole thing. I don't think there's many tracks on there that I dislike. I think
even Mr. Happy?
Well, you know, Mr. Happy is it's not great. It's not great. That and Holy River I don't like, but then you have stuff like Let's Have a Baby. I think Let's Have a Baby is, I mean, you know, when you say one of the greatest Prince tracks ever recorded, you're talking about a lot of tracks, because there's a lot of fantastic tracks that he's recorded, but I think it's in there. However long that list is, whether it's 20 or 30 or 40 tracks, I think it deserves to be in the upper echelon. I think just the piano is such a beautifully recorded piano, and then the bass line, and not even the bass line, the solo bass that's playing, just that conversation between the vocals, the piano, and the bass. It's gorgeous. I think even the covers, this is the first time they actually did covers of other people's material, and that blew me away. I was like, what? Really? Are you serious? And the stuff, the material that he decided to cover, like the just very old kind of doo-wop songs, old soul songs. It was a very interesting choice to me that he chose all the covers, all 3 of them. I think I Can't Make You Love Me, Betcha by Golly Wow, and La 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 Means I Love You. They're all from that genre, and I always found that very, very interesting. Now I like almost everything about the album, and I think, again, he was still using a very polished kind of sound and very computerized drum sounds, but I think this is the first time that he actually made it work in the 90s. But I have nothing negative to say about it. The only negative point really is what's already been said. It could be a banger of a single disc album if it was put together. But one interesting thing actually as well is that despite it being 3 discs, I actually have no problem with the sequencing. It's too long, but it didn't seem to jump around, and it wasn't necessarily untidy. It's just there was too much of the same sort of thing continuously, but I liked it.
Okay. Arthur, what'd you take on Emancipation?
I'm pretty much lockstep in with Jehan. It was too long. I think if sequenced properly, pared down, it could be his lone masterpiece of the 90s. I think the second disc was probably the best of the 3. I was also surprised at the cover choices. I think that he just took Joan Osborne's song when he did One of Us, just took it from her outright. And I really like My Computer. I really like Email. I like Jam of the Year, even with Rosie. I liked, there was so much to like about that album. Even some of the more campy material, like Sex in the Summer. I'm like, come on, dog, you're like 36, 37. You're a little too old to be talking about, panties and 19-year-olds and stuff like that. But I mean,
that's a brilliant song. I love that song.
With the heartbeat of your unborn child as the bass line. You know what I'm saying? It was just a little, I don't know. But, did you like Joint to Joint? Did you like Joint to Joint? I did not.
Okay, Mike, I like that one.
Mike. Go ahead.
Yeah, I did not. I just think that, I was actually really disappointed because he played the United Center here in Chicago after the Bulls won, I think, their 6th ring. And he played most of that album live. So that was the crew where I think Rhonda was on bass. I think he had what's my man's name on drums?
Kirky J.
He came back the next year later, and I did get to see him, and he played a lot of covers, but he played some stuff off of Emancipation. This is when he was riding around with Shaka Khan, Larry, and Doug Fresh. Mm-hmm. They translated well live, but yeah, it was just too long. But it's got its place, right in my collection.
I would say the one disappointment I had off this record was the actual title track. I just thought it was going to be so much more than. It just seemed like it was a short little, almost a throwaway song. I like the song, but I just thought it was going to mean. I don't know. I figured it was going to be this grandiose sort of shut down the house jam at the end sort of thing. But Big Sexy, what you think about this?
Like everyone else, it's too long, and sometimes artists and creative people need that person outside of the creative community to just, rein them in just a little bit, not tinker with what you do, but just like, dial this back a little bit. This could have been, I think it could have been pared down to 2 CDs or one, monumental CD, but I think it could have been pared down. I remember seeing the video for Betcha by Golly Wow and seeing Prince at the gas station with his little BMW getting the text that, Maite was pregnant, and watching it breaks my heart to this day, because that was just, he was so excited about being a parent. And then you look at that imagery in the interview on the Today Show, and it just wipes all that away. But when they did the show on BET, where they did Get Your Groove On, and they put in 6 in the middle of it, I'm like, okay, this will work. I don't know what happened with Kat Dyson. I don't know if she couldn't keep up musically, but she was there for that concert, and you look up and she's gone. And it was just too much music. There were a lot of good things. I didn't care for the Bonnie Raitt cover. I thought it could have been left alone. He did hijack Joan Osborne's song though, and I still wish she would do Get Your Groove On in concert to this day, because it's a great song. But I was expecting a lot more with this, because this was supposed to be the one. This was supposed to be the magnum opus, unrestricted, unfettered by anybody. This is what I'm going to do. And I just was left thinking, okay, when does it really ratchet up a notch? And it really just never got to that level that I was expecting it, but maybe I had too high expectations.
Yeah, and I think too, didn't his label shortly go out of, went bankrupt or something a little bit after the release of this record?
Yep.
And I think this is another thing. He was forced to, normally he, probably the last 4 or 5 albums, he had nothing to do with them. But I think this one, he was all in, like really going hard. And I can't remember when he was on there with Brian Gumble, and he was sort of asking him like, okay, so this album is not like selling, number one on the charts right now. Like, are you going to stick with this sort of thing? And Prince even sort of said, well, yeah, we're just kind of keep working it and doing things. But he kind of abandoned it. Like, again, he just sort of abandoned the record after a while. They went on tour again. I have a problem when he doesn't name the tours after the record. Like, it just seems like he's not really engaged with the project as much.
I'm going to blame Larry for this because right after, you know what's coming. Because after New Power Soul was coming out, it was all about New Power Soul and Shaka Khan Come to My House and GCS 2000. Damn that. You have Emancipation. You've got 3 CDs worth of material, which you need to get out there and promote because this is what we want to hear. This is supposed to be your, crowning achievement, and you don't even support it, man.
And I think we're seeing what Warner Brothers sees or used to see, right? Like, this guy goes too fast. Like, he got other stuff. So, Emancipation, the big hype thing that really got me pumped out of Emancipation, I believe it was a little flyer that came out of the album, talked about Crystal Ball coming. And I was like, what? You mean Crystal Ball that I've heard this bootlegger song? You talking about that? It was all over for me. So we're going to go right into Crystal Ball. This is probably one of the most anticipated records for me. Not knowing where it was going to be. I'm just thinking, it's 1986, 85. It's all this is going to be. Like, this is a wrap for me. I'm getting this record. I don't care what I got to do to get it. There was some drama about how it was released. It was pre-order and all that. I got it from the record store. I called them. They had it. I rode my bike down to the record store and picked it up. Crystal Ball. Let me just say, it's one of the greatest things for me personally that he did, just because it has pristine quality of certain songs that I wanted. To me alone, it is worth it just because I can get Chlorine Bacon Skin. It had that on there, and that goes back to like my era. The time, first, second album, that musicianship, banging. I don't care what it is. I'll buy whatever. So for me, that was worth it. Crystal Ball, the song, was worth it. Any of them tracks from the 80s on there, I'd have paid whatever to get it.
Man, you bought it for Poom Poom. Stop lying.
Yeah. Here you go. But I mean, the song I had never heard before, "Make Your Mama Happy," straight on some Sly, it's in the Sign of the Times era. Bang. I still play them songs, man. Like, to me, I love that project. Yeah, it was heavy on the 90s stuff, but the gems that were on there just goes to show, like, man, if he really gets serious, if they can have somebody else pick and say, this is what you need to do, he's got the funk there. Jehan, did you get Crystal Ball? What did you think of that?
Yeah, I did. I mean, every single penny, it was worth every single penny for the first track alone. To have
there you go.
Yeah.
A beautiful quality version of Crystal Ball. I mean, wow. That's, I mean, you've got the 80s parts, you've got the 90s parts. Clearly, from the whole conversation, I'm, married to the 80s parts. But yeah, it was worth it just for those. And it's, I was a bit, the title of it, I found a bit misleading because, from the fan mythology, Crystal Ball, I had, I'd viewed it as something kind of Sign of the Times style of that era. And I thought, oh, wow, is he going to re-release something? Is he going to do a new configuration of some kind of Sign of the Times Love Sexy type thing? And is it going to be redone? And then he came out with this, and I was a little disappointed with the plethora of 90s tracks on it, but I can't complain. Crystal Ball, track 1 on its own is worth it. But yeah, very, very happy with that.
Yeah, a movie star.
Yeah, movie star, Good Love. I mean, we already had Good Love from Bright Lights, Big City, but still, An Honest Man, Sexual Suicide, Chlorine Bacon Skin, like you said, Last Heart. Yeah, crazy.
Arthur.
Yeah, same here. But it was slightly bittersweet too, because it was like, okay, so you put all this on here, and I can't get the stuff I want. It's like, I mean, why didn't D'Angelo suggest We Can Funk? Why do you have to suggest? I ain't mad at Movie Star, but I mean, what about this? What about that?
Right.
What about the original version of Open Book? What about the original version of Get Blue? I think now here's the thing: we're talking about Crystal Ball, but the truth was on that package as a bonus CD.
Banging.
And I very recently want to give a shout out to my man Greg Maeda from Oakland. He bought Crystal Ball day one, or I think they mailed it to him. You know what I'm saying? But I'm saying he's had that since 1998. He had never heard the truth or the Kama Sutra, which I'm not mad at. But I'm like, dude, you have to listen to the truth. That is the MTV Unplugged album that never happened. That album there is probably, in my opinion, that is his magnum opus of the 90s. Leading off for he and piano, he and very sparse arrangements, closing with the song that I believe he dedicated to his deceased son. No. Did it close with Welcome to the Dawn, or did it close with one?
That was the last track. That was the last track.
Okay. The one where let me look it up. And I'm sorry, Mike. I had it right in front of me.
Come Back.
There we go. Come Back. Yeah. Come Back literally brought a tear to my eye. And Prince hadn't brought a tear to my eye since Graffiti Bridge in the theater.
Hilarious.
But that I can't really talk enough about that. But I think that this is a period also, I know we're talking about the music, but this is the period also where EMI went out of business. He's got no distributor now, so he's got to get innovative. He's manufacturing his CDs now. He's becoming the distributor. He's opening up new channels with e-commerce on the internet. He's beginning to sell songs, not necessarily individually, but he's beginning to sell songs directly to his fan base. And he's also finding that he's making more money on these direct sales. That's why he's not necessarily upset that, these aren't number 1 platinum certified albums anymore. I think that one was in the conversation.
Yeah, definitely. And was it this album? I think it was this album where he did the pre-sale and he had it in the stores and he pre-sold it to these stores, and he was like, yeah, I've made all this money. Like, I don't have to sell nothing. Like, it's already a done deal.
It was like he had like 2 versions. One was the circular. It was like if you ordered it through him, you got the Kama Sutra. If you that was one thing, and then if you got it early in the stores like I did, you got the truth, and then there was just an empty slot. But it was still the clear circular package. And then if you got it later, or I think through some channels like Best Buy that has certain ways that they had to stock stuff, or you got the double CD thing.
That's what I got.
You didn't get the truth. Yeah.
But mine's had the truth in it, though.
Oh, really? Okay, so you did. It was like a 4 CD deal then in that packaging. That's cool.
Yeah, I didn't get the Kama Sutra, though. The Kama Sutra had been online previously to this, and Big Ken.
I agree with everything you guys said. It was worth it just for Movie Star and those other old school cuts, Chlorine Bacon Skin. I also like some of the 90s. I liked a lot of the 90s material, Love Sign, Acknowledge Me, The Bang. That was great. And then, just like Arthur said, the truth was an extra bonus, man, because that album blew me away. Certain cuts like Third Eye, The Other Side of the Pillow, Fascination, and one of my favorites is One of Your Tears, man. It's just ridiculous. I just love that album. So yeah, this is one of the high points in my opinion in his 90s catalog.
Let me ask you a question. Do you think that this was an olive branch to us for all that drama he took us through?
Kind of, sort of, but if he really wanted to do a true olive branch, wasn't this the album when he solicited, feedback from all the fans, like, what do you guys want? What do you guys want? Well, he should have put more, if it was going to be a true olive branch, and he should have put more of what the fans asked for. Put some of that Roadhouse Garden on there, Our Destiny and those kind of things.
That was Crystal Ball 2 that he was going to do. Where he
I knew it was one of them, but but.
Well, the other point is, if it was going to be a true olive branch, don't make people wait 1 year before sending to them what they paid for.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I mean, what the hell? It's like horrific. That is completely unacceptable.
Yeah, Emancipation came out with 96. Crystal Ball didn't come out to 98. So
right, because he said that he wasn't going to release it until he
had a certain amount.
Was it like 25 or 50 or 100,000 something? Yeah. A huge amount of pre-orders.
Yeah, that's when I was. Go ahead.
You have people like day one putting their money down, and he's like, "Yeah, y'all can just wait now. I'll keep your money. I'll earn interest on the money that you've given me, and I won't ship until I'm ready to." I know people who still haven't got their copy.
Wow. Yeah, that's when I heard about that. I was like, "Nah, that don't vibe. I'm purse first." I wasn't raised like that. Like, nah, let me know when it's ready to ship, then I'll pay for it. But nah, I'm cool, sir. Not gonna buy it. So yeah, Crystal Ball, Big Sexy. Did you ever?
Same thing with everybody else. I was surprised that the years were so varied in there. You had things as old as 83 and as new as 95. But when I heard the Tell Me How You Want to Be Done, at first I'm like, oh man, that's Continental. Then I played it again, like, well, this is better than Continental, actually. I like this. And I got mine through the fan club. I got the little round plastic case. And I remember being solicited for a CD of nothing but samples. I don't think that ever came out.
Yes.
But I thought about grabbing that too.
That's right. He did. It was going to be like $700 or something crazy. But it was going to be.
I heard it. It wasn't worth it.
You heard it.
You heard it.
Yeah, because a lot of it leaked out online.
What?
Yeah.
I'll talk to you.
I mean, it's just, it's not. And honestly, it wasn't really even well done, because whoever did it, I don't think they understood how to really do a sample CD correctly. So a lot of the little drum hits and stuff that you could get yourself by just chopping up the record. They didn't have the endpoints right for you, so it's a lot of stuff blended. Yeah, it wasn't clean, and it was a lot of guitar licks with other parts of the song, and it wasn't that good.
But the thing is, though, if they were going to go on sale, the thing is, we could use those royalty free in perpetuity. That was the big selling point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's interesting. There was a lot of interesting products he was trying to offer. So a couple more here. We're almost done. So the next record that comes out, and I'm going to say this right now, I know it's not going to be agreed upon. This is one of my favorite albums from the 90s. One of my favorite albums from Prince. New Power Soul. June 30th, 1998. I did a whole show about this. I thought, for me, this album was a return to, like, you know what? I can drop the needle down, let it ride. There's 2 songs on here that are whack. Push It Up, and I Like Funky Music. But everything else, that's my man. I don't care what nobody say. I ride with all them tracks. I think they're dope. It's just a straight R&B Prince sort of record. Shoo-be-doop, that's my cut. Mad Sex, When You Love Somebody, what's the Wasted Kisses? To me, come on, whatever. Dope.
Freaks on This Side.
Freaks on This Side. Dope. I was just blown. I was blown away by this record. I pumped this hard in the car. Me and Tobias used to ride this record. So I'll say what you want to say. Who was that? Jehan? Go ahead, sir.
I like it. I like the album, man. I like the album. Seriously. I like the album a lot. I like Mad Sex. I even like that. And I remember going on to the MPGMC. Well, no, what was it? MPGOnlineLimited.com. And that was like one of the first websites I ever visited. And I remember Mad Sex being just like the opening loop or the opening couple of bars being looped on that website. And I remember thinking, whoa, this is dope. And then I got the album, and yeah, I mean, Come On, amazing. The One. I actually like the slightly shorter edit version of the one that I think is on the album rather than the single. Maybe it was the other way around, but whichever the shorter one was. But yeah, everything about it was dope. The only beef I had, because I always got to have some kind of beef. The only beef I had with the album was the title. When I heard New Power Soul, I thought, wow, this is it. Love Sexy's come back.
Right.
And I was really just so hype. I mean, like really, really couldn't be hyper. And because I know you guys have said previously when Emancipation was about to drop, you were hoping it was going to be a return to form. We're always hoping that it's a return to the 80s style, but this was like, he gave us the title and I thought, oh my God, here he is, we're right here. And so it was still a 90s kind of sound, but I'm not mad. I like the album. Definitely.
Jehan, I gotta say, man, you are a complete enigma, man. Just when I think that there's an album that you're gonna destroy, you like it. You're an odd guy, but I like it, man. It's all right.
You know what I really like about it? It's cohesive as well. It's like he had a vision for it, and definitely, not mad at all.
Go ahead, Big Ken.
Oh, I agree. I love it, man. I guess my only real beef with this is that, and I think what a lot of people may get tripped up by is it the low budget production of it in terms of, well, not production, I'm sorry, presentation of it. The album cover art and everything looks kind of cheesy. He's standing there with that crazy mic gun again. At least he left the policeman hat off, but it just seemed a little bit low budget, but the music on it, I think it's funky. It is a good CD to bump in your car up at full volume, so I agree with you guys. I like it.
All right, Mr. Author.
I like it too. It was a lot of the show that I saw in '98. So he played this material before I'd actually heard the album, and it was kind of one of those things where, man, how come it didn't sound like that? But at the same time, though, I thought there were parts of it that were still kind of goofy. The art direction. I'm big on art direction and stuff, and I mean, I really didn't appreciate the packaging. I think that putting this out as a 3-pack, I understood what he was doing. But, when he did this later on with Bria Valentine, I don't want your album. I don't want your album, Larry Graham. I don't want that album, Shaka Khan. I just don't want it. You know what I mean? And with Prince kind of trying to bring the legends with him, it's like I understood what he was doing, but it was getting in the way of the focus being on him and, and the music. But The One, incredible song. Like Shoo-Ba-Doo. Didn't really care for Mad Sex. But it's sort of like it's like that whole keeping it real going wrong thing. It's like you're pushing 40. Stop it. It's like one word, AIDS. You know what I'm saying? I mean, let's try to keep things into perspective, and everything doesn't have to be a freak show. It's like he always reverts back to this whole freak show thing. When blood. I guess. I guess.
Yeah, I just thought the album was amazing. Big Sexy, what'd you think, man? I know you was rocking Push It Up.
Let me go ahead and put on my black hat now. I completely disagree. Other than the one, Wasted Kisses, which was buried at the end as a hidden track, and Come On, this album is just whack. Wow. I don't care for it at all. I did enjoy the performance he gave on, I think, the late night Sinbad show where he did The One and Let's Work and just blew it up. And I enjoyed the interview with Tavis Smiley on BET.
Yes. But
as a whole, this album, I'm like, what? No. And what was that one song where he, where in the video he's playing an old guy in like an English car.
Come On.
And he just, that's the Come On video. I mean, I liked that, but the whole project to me just seemed not uninspired, but just underfinanced and underpromoted, and he was, again, it was just like Arthur said, I don't want Larry. If I want Larry, I'll buy Larry.
Right.
If I want Shaka, I'll buy Shaka. It's great that he has such reverence for them and their status. That's great, but do your thing. Now, stay in your lane. Don't try to elevate people who have had their run, back up to where you are. And I'm not saying it was a bad thing from an emotional standpoint, but from an execution standpoint, no. And the freaks on this side and push it up, that's bullshit. No, that was terrible.
Oh, my man. Well, I would say I think that I don't mind Larry personally. I think to me Larry Graham was funky. Like I think maybe some of the things he may stand for, people take issue and sort of equate the whole Jehovah's Witness thing to that. But musically, I don't think it was a problem. I think Prince heavily is influenced by that stuff. I'm sure if he was best friends with Sly, his ass would have been all over his stuff. But I think that it was cool. I thought it was just cool that he could do that. Like, he was like, you know what? I'm going to pull, like you said, I'm going to pull the legends up. Yeah, I know you're going to buy my stuff, but you know what? You're going to have to buy theirs too. Because that's just me giving respect to what made me be what I am. And so, with that said, I think there was one song, personally, I think there's one song that they did that was the shit together. I'm going to play a little bit of it. You can comment on it afterwards, but here's a little bit of Prince and Larry. All right, there's a little bit of Larry and Prince. You can't. You don't like that?
No.
I don't have a problem with Larry Graham.
Thank you.
Wait. I don't have a problem with Larry. I don't have a problem with Larry at all. But the thing is, that piece we just heard, that horn section was taken straight from the song "Stand," if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. And the Larry performance with Prince at the New Year's Eve show in '99. Mm-hmm. That's on the DVD. When they did "Kiss," now that was happening. And Larry's solo stuff, great. But that one, no. And Larry was great up until when he was doing the GCS stuff, I'm with it. But when he started doing the 1 in a Million and Just Be My Lady, snore.
But that's that's one of his signature joints. 1 in a million.
I feel you on that.
That's my granddaddy in them funk. But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm saying Larry, I'm glad to know that. Larry Graham's the truth. Because, like, him, Black Will, and Prince did Bambi one night. And it was just like, good God. You know what I'm saying? I ain't never heard bass like that. Where Prince is just like, I ain't even going to touch the bass because this man is standing right here. I don't even need to.
Yeah, Larry gets blamed with a lot. I thought it was cool. Now, Shaka's stuff, I was a little disappointed. I just expected it to be a lot better.
I like that album.
Really?
Yeah. I thought, don't get me wrong, I didn't think it was a great album, but I think it had higher points on it than GCS 2000.
Okay.
Yeah. They had some horrible moments, like Pop My Clutch, but, that was horrific. But Come to My House, the song itself, I think Journey to the Center of Your Heart, I don't know, Don't Talk to Strangers.
And that's a good song.
even Hair, I think, even her version of Hair is good.
You know, this is also the time where Prince is becoming more accessible, where you see him on stage, you see him in interviews, you see that he's actually enjoying himself. Mm-hmm. You know, and it's starting to show in the music, and it's also starting to show in the performances. He's doing these private affairs or these invitation-only affairs, or, you know, show up, you know, these late-night Paisley Park concert sessions where anybody can just roll on in and, you know, you to a degree, you know, interact with him. But at the same time, he's also kind of reconnecting to the V103 crowd. You know what I mean? The Black adult contemporary crowd that were the casual, Prince button wearing teenagers that we went to school with, but really weren't into Prince like you and I were, are now sort of re-engaging themselves with this new Prince.
That's interesting. I think somebody brought up that Tavis Smiley interview that came out around the same time. I thought that was another sort of, let me pull back the veil a little bit, and yes, I am a person. You know what I mean? Like, it just felt like he was a lot more unguarded. You know, they were going to take calls from people to call in. I thought that was a very telling interview, personally. Like, I was like, yeah, that's my dude. Like, man, he don't sound crazy on here. He wasn't talking in riddles. You know what I mean? He was like giving straight answers, whether you agreed with him or not. But I don't really like that interview.
He's also on the cover of Yahoo Internet Life around this time in 1997. And, you know, shout out to The Vault, that album that came out that had the long version of She Spoke to Me.
Mm-hmm. And that's the next one. The last album of the 90s was The Vault, Old Friends for Sale. Now,
no, there's one other album though. After that, you got Rave.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. Scroll down.
Yeah, let's get to Rave.
All right, just real quick. The Vault. When you see that title, Old Friends for Sale, I know when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is going to be the truth. Because they just pulling something from the golden era. Again, disappointed by this record. But it does have that song on there.
Yeah, but they used the wrong version.
Yeah, they did. But I was happy to get it. And I like that song. And also like the very last track. Is it Extraordinary?
That's the
Extraordinary.
And doesn't that song sort of harken back to Soul Class? I'm thinking like Me and Mrs. Jones or something like that.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Five Women was pretty cool too.
I didn't really like that.
It's got a bluesy thing, kind of like a Bobby Blue Bland type of flavor.
Yeah, I did like. I'm sort of forgetting whatever the Sarah or something. Those songs are just sort of weird to me, and I think a lot of those tracks are coming from that movie thing that Prince was going to do at the time.
About 3 or 4 of them come from that movie soundtrack that got nixed.
I'll Do Anything, the Nick Nolte movie. So, if any last points on the vote, or we'll move over to
just a question. Actually,
Sure.
Does anybody have any information on how it was put together? Like, I know that Warner Brothers chose the material without his involvement and presumably against his will.
You mean the vote?
Correct.
You know, Prince actually walked in there with, was it 4 or 5 albums done? He gave them, I want to say he probably gave them Come, Gold, The Vault, and I'm missing one, Chaos and Disorder. They were all complete, done, artwork and everything.
Really,
so here you go.
Even The Vault, because I had always read that. I had always read that it was against his will, and Warner's just did it on their own.
No, I'm pretty sure that he gave them those ones complete. So you put them out when you need to. I'm done, and I got them out of the deal. Yeah. All right, Rave Unto the Joy, fantastic. This is the meeting of the mind. This is Prince. He meets doing a project with Clive Davis, of course, very popular. Been in the business for years, very legendary. Now, you know, he had I think he was coming off of the success of the Santana album. If it was the year before, whatever. I think it was one album of the year. It's very, very popular. It was kind of like a duet sort of thing.
Yep.
And trying to recreate this with Prince. So we got Prince now. Rave, author.
Okay, garbage album.
Garbage album.
Right. So here's the thing. Raven to the Joy Fantastic. Now I remember that song from the Hague bootleg that came out on vinyl called DMSR, where he opens the song with this instrumental, and it turns out to be Raven to the Joy Fantastic, right? So I get this album. He's on the front with some pigtails and this spandex rubber unitard, and the packaging is so Clive Davis, whatever. Okay, fine. And I put it in the CD player. Rave is the first song, title track, and I'm like, please don't suck. Please don't suck. Please don't suck. And it sucks, right? Then he follows that up with probably the first of two great wasted opportunities with classic rappers with Chuck D. And then, right? Exactly. and we're just on song 2.
Can I add one thing though? The major disappointment for me though is that the Rave Unto the Joy Fantastic is the Rave version from back in the day, and it sucks. But go ahead. That is the studio version from the back.
And that which is just so baffling. But okay. So then we get to Greatest Romance, which isn't a bad song. It's not a bad song. It's just on a bad album, right? I'm trying to find the highlight for it because I mean, there's one song that I actually kind of liked. I think it's Tangerine. I do. Okay, you know what? I like So Far So Pleased, and I like Every Day Is a Winding Road. Primarily because it's Sheryl Crow's song, and Sheryl Crow is actually kind of good. But man, garbage album, man. I got the DVD. I ain't watched it in a while. I just don't know.
Yeah, Big Ken, go ahead.
I wouldn't go so far as to call it a garbage album, but I'd agree that it is uneven at best. All these appearances with Chuck D, and I don't know if you guys heard the other version, the Rave Into the Joy Fantastic, where you had I think Eve is on there and some other people on there. Yeah, that's okay. I could do without the rapper, collabos and whatnot. I mean, I like a couple of cuts on here. Rave is okay. Like you said, Tangerine, Every Day's Winding Road. I love Silly Game. I think that's a really nice ballad. Strange But True is okay. The Pretty Man song is funny to me, but it's, overall, it's just another one of those albums, kind of like the Symbol album, where I have to be in the mood to want to hear, and just to want to hear some of that stuff. I don't listen to it that often, and when I do, I don't listen to it straight through. It's just, select tracks.
Yeah, I wish New Power Soul could have got the pump that Rave got. To me, I think it would have done better. Rave is just a disappointment to me. Sonically, just the way it sounds, I wasn't feeling it. Hot With You was a hot mess. That song was terrible. The one with Chuck D again, just a disappointment. I'm like, Prince, Chuck D, okay, this is gonna. And at the time, Chuck was still I still high regard. Yeah, this is gonna be dope. It was terrible. I did like Greatest Romance. I actually sort of dug that track. Again, I just don't think. And then classic Prince fashion, it is not really selling right out the gate, so he just abandons it. And then he starts getting sort of kind of a sly war of the words with Clive Davis and Aristotle, whatever, and he ain't got nothing to do with no more. And then it just peters away. Yeah, I don't know, and it was a big album, right? I mean, there was a lot of stuff to do about it. It was supposed to be this big deal, but I don't think that the first single was a good song to release at the time. And I think image-wise, Prince, he just didn't fit what was going on. It's just that whole look with the blue thing, and he's trying to channel Coolio or something.
Aquaman.
It just wasn't the look, man. I was just like, what are you doing? I don't think he fit in with the times at that point. And I sort of like the songs he did with was it Baby Knows? But I don't know. It just
but then he does this great project with Angie Stone.
Right. Well, yeah. And that's the other thing I forgot. Somebody brought up this was the song Undisputed. I did like the remix to it, and if I understand my reading correctly, that was him dissing Questlove and D'Angelo. Talking about chicken grease and all that kind of spawned from that whole little thing. So I think too he came at the time and I want to say Voodoo may have just came out or was getting ready to come out, and it was sort of that real comparison thing going on between those two, and I just think it wasn't really his time to come out. And then I'm not going to get into it, but the answer to that, right, was to do Rainbow Children. But
the masterpiece.
Yeah, I would agree. Jehan, what do you think, Barbara?
I hate the album. I think it's probably got the worst cover art of any Prince album. He looks like an elf on the cover. It's just I don't know what he's done to his hair. It's just it really looks photoshopped and like first generation, like Photoshop 1.0. It's really, really bad. I do think that the highlight of the album is the last 30 or 40 seconds of The Sun, the Moon, and the Stars.
Yeah, I did like that.
It's like through The Sun, the Moon, and the Stars, he's using the LM1, the original Lindrum throughout the whole track. And then it's quite a happy track, but then the outro, it turns a little dark, and then you've got the bass, the sort of solo bass tracking the Lin, and I think that's beautiful. But other than that, just terrible collection of songs. And as for Undisputed, I think like musically, I think the Chuck D section, the actual rap section, is probably the best part of the track because he brings along the high-end kind of rhythm guitar again while Chuck's rapping. But as a track, yeah, I agree. It's just terrible, and it's interesting. Like if Prince asks you to guest on a track, the first thing you say is yes, of course, it's Prince, right? Mm-hmm. Who among us? If we're all artists, who among us would say, no, I'm not really into it, mate. But then you go to the studio and you hear the track. What do you do? What does Chuck do? What do we want him to do at this point?
You call Griff.
I mean, because in one hand it's Prince. How can you say no?
Right.
But I don't know.
Big Sexy, bring us home on this song.
I have both versions of the Rave album, the Into or Unto and Into, and other than Baby Knows and to a lesser extent The Greatest Romance, the album's a throwaway. He didn't do any of that new material on the DVD in the concert, and other than he did Baby Knows, he showed the video for Greatest Romance, and it's like, man, you just have lost your direction. I think he was trying too hard to wear too many hats and to cater to too many people. And the standout things on the DVD was, seeing Morris and Jerome, seeing Lenny Kravitz, everything. And the standout performance of Kiss. That was mind-blowing. But everything else was just like, again, there was something I expected more and was disappointed.
All right, so we're going to wrap this thing up. We're going to get people's final sort of comments on the 90s overall. I'm just going to say my piece and be done. In my opinion, the 90s have fantastic music. Probably, it had way more music than we were ever accustomed to getting from Prince in one particular time. Staggering amount of albums, stuff that came out. None of it all came out at the right time. He may not have been engaged in terms of us being fans and what we saw, but listening back on it now, I think, I don't know how to say. On one hand, it is as strong as the 80s in the sense that I don't think the impact was there culturally, but I think there are a lot of great songs. There could arguably be more great songs in there They just don't have great moments attached to them, so they don't mean as much to us. But I think there's a lot of great stuff there. The Truth album, some of the stuff on Emancipation, New Power Soul, Graffiti Bridge, even Batman. There are elements on all of these albums that are pure genius, some more than others. I think Prince, in terms of the performer Prince, got even better. And I think that 94 through, 96 MPG or 95, they were the shit live. Like, their stuff was ridiculous. If you go back and look at or listen to a lot of those performances, they were really on point. I like the whole computer stuff that they added. A lot of those performances had a lot of pre-recorded background vocals, but I think it worked. And I think it got the sound back to where it's sort of like could stand toe-to-toe with the record or go better. And it didn't sound like it was, I'm just going to have a band play this stuff, which I thought, Diamonds and Pearls band, it was more of a band, a big band sound with the drums. But I think, to me, Prince ain't supposed to have real drums. It's supposed to sound like the records, just like those early albums. They didn't have a real drums. It was drum machines. So when they went out to play with the Revolution, they had that drum machine sound. I think that this is the same way he's supposed to have it. That's a problem I have with their stuff now. It don't have enough of the drum machine sound live, so it don't really match up to me. It sounds like just a cool band doing jazz stuff, which is fine, but that ain't no Prince shit. So I like the 90s. It's just, it was Prince unleashed. Instead of Django, Prince was unleashed. And, the question was, is it too much? I think it is. I think Warner's did a great thing in the 80s, and they roped that shit in and made it so that each thing counted. It mattered. There's a great quote from Little Richard on one of those Prince documentaries. I can't think what it's called. It's a really short one. But he said something to the point of, I think Prince just need to give him more time so we can digest what he's doing and can really appreciate the shit that he's got. And I think that's ultimately the 80s. They let him go wild. He went wild. And it went over a lot of people's head. Big Ken, go ahead.
I agree with you pretty much. I think overall the 90s were a positive. There are a lot of good moments in the 90s, but the problem is that they are buried underneath all the drama from Warner Brothers. They're buried underneath, the apparent perception that a lot of people had that Prince didn't care. They're buried under some poor choices that he made in terms of trying to secure audiences that really are not his core. So you just had a bunch of stuff going on in the 90s, and I think you're right. Part of the issue was some of the things that were so great about the 80s catalog is, you're right, Warner Brothers did rein a lot of that stuff in, and you could notice the difference in the 90s because there was no system of checks and balances set up anywhere. So Prince was just out there just going wild, doing whatever he wanted. And it worked out sometimes, but a lot of times it didn't. Most people didn't understand, So there are a lot of good moments, some questionable moments. But overall, I think, he has some good stuff in there. I think what's going to happen is that a lot of the stuff during this decade is not going to get proper respect or, adoration until years from now, when people will look back on his career. And sadly, it'll probably be after he's gone, when people will go back and then they'll start to reassess his catalog and they'll reassess his contribution to music. And then a lot of people may understand where he's coming, where he was at this, at that point in time. But, overall, it's good. Just some highs, a few highs and a few lows.
All right, Arthur, what's your take?
Well, I think that the material is there that you can mine. That's quality material. I do think that the entire decade was a transition period for him, and I think that I think it's unfortunate that there's not one album from this period that we would take and put on the top shelf, with the 80s catalog that's properly You know what I'm saying? That's properly ordered by release date and, you know, and catalog number and you know, and things like that. You know, maybe we'd have that kind of thing on a compilation album. But like I said earlier, you know, I do believe that every great artist goes through a period like this where in the name of developing themselves, developing a new audience, they alienate and even siphon off a portion of their core audience that's either unable to go down the same road that they're going, you know. But then there's some that hang on, you know, and I think that all of us on the show today are those that still hang on because we see the bigger picture, you know, in the career of what I believe is the greatest artist, definitely of our time, but you know, arguably, period. No one has been able to do what this man has done, and even continues to do with what we're now seeing, the excitement that's being generated from some of the newer material that's been coming out in these last few weeks, you know. But I really appreciate being on the show. If I don't have an opportunity to say it again, I really appreciate the invitation, and I want to give a shout out to Michelle Niego Cello for her bass work on Email on Emancipation. I meant to say that earlier.
Right on, Jehan.
Well, it may be that, I mean, you guys clearly are, I mean, serious experts. And it may be that I just can't see the wood for the trees. Or it may be that, like Isaac's saying, like Arthur's saying, he, you know, every great artist goes through a point where they develop and they change, and in doing so, they shed part of their core audience. So in that instance, it may be that he's the phoenix and I'm the ashes. But I just think something happened in 1990 that changed him, and it's never been the same. And even the albums that I do like, that we mentioned, like Emancipation or New Power Soul, even then, I like them within the context of what I consider to be the wilderness, not within the context of what I consider to be the highest echelon. So I don't think that they would come close to competing with 1999 or Parade or Lovesexy. So to me, I will always look at it as an unfortunate period. And in fact, I don't even know if I can consider it a period. Sadly, I probably consider from For You to Lovesexy to be a period. And, you know, it's a period of greatness within his entire catalogue. And he's still, like Arthur said, he's still, to me, the greatest artist of all time, purely on the basis of his first, 9 or 10 albums. But yeah, I think for me, it's a dark period. But again, thank you so much for the opportunity to come on the show. And I'm sorry that I probably didn't add much value, because I was probably like, I hate that. No, I really hate that one. I kind of hate that one. No, I seriously hate that one. Probably the whole time. So, but thanks for bearing with that. I really appreciate it.
It's our pleasure again. Big, Sexy, and Sax. Bring us home.
Well, the 90s was a lot up and down. I agree with Ken, who has said the Glam Slam Ulysses portion, from like 94, 96, really had some great material. But unfortunately, it was all overshadowed by the beef with Warner Brothers and the perception of that, he's nuts because he's changing his name. All of these things overshadowed some great music. Now, once he got past that, after Emancipation, to me, there was quite a drop off. I'm not ripping Larry. I'm not ripping Shaka. I understand, when you have reverence for other people in your field, you want to work with them and help them. That's great. But again, it just wasn't there from like 96 to the end of 99. It just wasn't, the music just wasn't there. And I'm not saying that I can do what he does, because I'm not a musician, but when you look at, like Jehan said, you look at everything up from For You to Lovesexy, and then you look at the last 96 to 99, it's like, who is this guy, man? Clearly he was lost. I'm not a big fan of the labels as entities, but in this case, they were needed to help keep him focused on what he's doing, because he just was so scattered, worrying about distribution here and airplay there and product support here, on top of bringing other people in. It's just too much for anybody to expect to keep their productivity at a creative level so high when you have to wear all these hats. And it showed, and maybe he'll, now granted from a monetary standpoint, like with Crystal Ball, he sold less but made more. If that's your goal, hey man, whatever, I ain't mad at you. But just from a quality standpoint musically, no, it just wasn't there from 96 to the end of the decade.
Interesting. Listening to you guys, I have one last question. What would you have thought if he did Love Sexy and then he sat out and was disappeared, and the next album he did was the Rainbow Children? So he skipped 10 years, 10, 11 years, just sat down. And he said, I'm done. And then he drops Rainbow. Would the Rainbow Children have been that impactful to you? That's a sort of a hard question, weird question to ask. But
that's a really good question. That's
GOAT.
a really good question.
Go ahead.
GOAT, absolute greatest of all time. You dropped Love Sexy after Sign of the Times, after the mythic Black Album that 20 people on the planet have heard. You sit it out for 10 years, 11 years, and you drop the Rainbow Children. Like Scoop said, you can kiss my ass after Sign of the Times and Love Sexy. So now I'm coming back after you haven't heard from me ever on some Phil Spector type stuff, and I give you the Rainbow Children, and then I'm really out. I'm just out.
That's a hard question to answer though, Mike, because honestly, I don't think that he could. I don't think it's possible that he could have went from Love Sexy straight to Rainbow Children, because the reason I say that is the reason why he got the Rainbow Children is because he went through all that drama in the 90s. He went through all those lows. That's how he found religion, and that's how he got to that point in the first place. So it's kind of a hard question to answer.
Do you think he found religion with Love Sexy though? I mean, that was sort of
he was religious. No, yeah, he was religious with Love Sexy, and he flirted with religious themes in previous albums. But I'm saying to go so far as to commit to Jehovah's Witness, to go to that point, to commit and go through. Well, again, that's my point. The journey was through all of that after Love Sexy, through all of those highs and lows. Through that's when he committed to Jehovah's Witness and went that extra step. It's one thing to say to put religious themes in your records. Anybody can do that. Say peace to God and all this stuff. Anybody can do that. But to actually do the work, like Mike used to always, like Mike always says, to commit to a religion, to actually go to the Kingdom Hall and to go door to door and do all those things.
Well,
that's what I'm saying.
Well, he could have still done. I'm just saying, if he didn't put no albums out, if he just disappeared, it doesn't necessarily mean he wouldn't have found Jehovah or whatever.
No, I agree with that, but I'm saying the Rainbow Children as a whole, as the record that we're talking about, is a product of the journey, and part of that journey would be him finding religion, quote unquote. So I'm just saying, I'm not necessarily sure that we would be able to, in retrospect, it's easy for us to say, yeah, he would be the greatest of all time, but would we even be able to understand him if he coming from Love Sexy and he's going, all the way out to here with Rainbow Children? Some people might, deep brothers like you guys might, but a lot of people
I don't know, man. I the reason I agree with you, I agree with your premise, but the journey's still happening, even though that the albums aren't being put out. And see, here's what I'm saying: Love Sexy. The next extension of that, the next step of that, is the Rainbow Children. It's like if you listen to Love Sexy and then listen to the Rainbow Children and tell me that's not a development from sonically. You still had the concept album. Love Sexy is a concept album. It's not really talked about in that kind of way, but it's really a concept album where he's found this truth. And this truth is Love Sexy, and Love Sexy is the way, and till the day of the Hundla Silly, whatever the hell that means. But I'm just saying, Love Sexy is like a premise for him through that entire album. And then you go to the Rainbow Children, which is almost like a retelling of Adam and Eve, and it's the same kind of large theme, funky, collaborative musicianship that goes on. You know, I mean, Love Sex is what? Him, Sheila, and maybe one other person. And then, you know, Rainbow Children is him, John Blackwell, and maybe Rhonda in and out of there. You know, it's the same kind of thing. I think you still get, if you didn't have all those other albums in the 90s, I'd still say that it's very plausible that Rainbow Children would have been the next album.
I agree with all of what you're saying, and I do agree to a point. I guess my thing is that though I love Rainbow Children, I just know that to some people, Rainbow Children Prince is he's veritably preaching in that album, right? And some people get turned off by that. So I don't know if it would be big enough. You know, it would appeal to us as hardcore Prince cats, right? That's what I'm saying. To us, we get it. But to the
people came to those shows. He sold out those shows. One Night Alone was that tour.
Yeah, but that's mainly Prince fans. That's not the general.
That's what I'm saying.
But there's another point though, Arthur. You're right. He did sell out those shows, but at least in Europe, they were small shows. They weren't arena shows.
Right. Yeah, they were small shows here too.
They're very small shows.
Yeah, he did. I mean, he did theater. He did theater shows. Yes.
I guess what I'm saying is Rainbow Children, for all its greatness, and I agree. Don't trust me. Don't get it twisted. I'm not dissing Rainbow Children. I love that album. No, it is a masterpiece, but it's not going to appeal to the general public. The general public does not.
Sure, it wouldn't. It's not going to appeal to them. But I don't think Love Sexy appealed to them either. To be honest,
and that's my point. To us as Prince brethren, we would be like, man, he went from Sign of Times to this. Oh, he's the greatest of all time.
Right,
but the average out there is not going to feel that.
I don't know. I just can't agree with that. The reason why is because he actually did the kind of promotion that you wish that he did for Emancipation. He actually went out. He did the same promotion that you wish that he would have done for the New Power Generation. He went on Leno. He went around the world. I saw him in Tokyo at that show. He sold out 2 nights at Budokan. People loved it. People loved it in the States. And I'm with you. He did not do super large arena shows around the States. But it wasn't because nobody could get the general public couldn't get the sound. Because I'm telling you, it would, even in Chicago, it wasn't all Prince heads up in there.
I think for me,
go ahead.
For me, the interesting thing is, I mean, Michael, you asked, that's a devastatingly good question.
That's really a Snobs question. That's a round table.
It's really thrown me. You got me, man. I still don't know if I got the answer. I think to answer your question, and then I'll make a point. To answer your question, yes, I think I would have preferred him to sit out the 90s and come with that. And I think I would then look at his legacy as being far less eroded as I do now. And on 2 points. So I think it would be far less eroded musically because I liked the sound of the Rainbow Children, even though it was largely, in my view, inspired by the modern alternative soul or so-called neo-soul movement of the time, and him saying, "Oh, I can do it too." Right. They copied me.
Right.
But I think the other interesting point is that he shook off the childishness in terms of image and approach and material that a lot of the 90s had to me. His dress was much more mature, and his approach was much more mature for the Rainbow Children. And the shows, they weren't quite so Vegas-y as some of the previous 90s performances. And I think he seemed to take himself much more seriously at that time. So yeah, I think hell of a question. In saying yes, I would rather him have sat it out. What I'm also saying is I would rather us not have had Get Off, that's a tough thing to say. I mean, that's one of my all-time favorite Prince joints. But no, yeah, I think so. I think sit it out and come back, and I would have thought, wow, this guy who disappeared at the apex of his grandeur and the apex of the peak of his powers, he's coming back and he's still got it. Yeah, so I think definitely I would have been very impressed.
I would add that I think that the 90s albums, and even more so, disappointingly so, the album after Rainbow Children, they're albums that are made to service an audience who wants what they think Prince is. If that makes any sense. Like, I'm going to give you a Prince album by the numbers, where pretty much everything up to Love Sexy doesn't do that. It just gives you what that man wanted to do. Even though it may not work to the general public, that's what his vision is. I think Rainbow Children is the next album that does that. After all, as much as I like the 90s stuff, a lot of it is made tailored to, this is what a Prince album is supposed to sound like. It's going to have this kind of song, it's going to have that kind of song, this kind of song, that kind of song. It's going to have some hits. But Rainbow Children, it's not made for radio. It ain't made for no hits. You know what I mean? It's like, you're either going to get this record or you don't. But it is its own thing. It doesn't fit no format, to be honest. Just like I would say Love Sexy, it don't fit no format. Like, yeah, okay, I'll put Alphabet Street on there because, yeah, I ain't crazy. But aside from that, ain't nobody feeling, I mean, you know, general public, they're not, what the hell is this? And so I think on one hand, it brought us back to the Prince of, yes, this is straight artistry. This is what I'm into. A wild story, the voice funny, whatever. But this is my stuff. It don't fit no. I think there was a single, but it didn't do nothing. It wasn't gonna do nothing. And I think he understood that. Like, I'm gonna put this record out myself. Yeah, I'm not gonna do the major deal with this one because it ain't gonna work in that context. And your point of the shows, you're right. He did take himself very serious. Let me go get Maceo. Let me get these guys. The only thing I will say about the show is I noticed the show that I went to, yeah, it was sold out. And yes, it's Prince, but I think a lot of the people that went there left disappointed because they didn't get Purple Rain. They didn't get Raspberry Beret and a lot of the bigger hits that they wanted. And I think he may have saw that. Okay, from now on, it's Arena, greatest hits.
Now you can't stop doing greatest hit shows. Right.
And every album since then is a major disappointment to me personally. I think they're the 2000s are a whack era. Like, aside from where it started, everything else after Rainbow Children, I don't listen. I can't listen to those records. It's sadly to say. But I'm going to go to Big Sexy. What do you think about that question?
I think, and I'm going to have to piggyback with what Ken said. In order to get to where you are now, you've got to go through the journey. And as an artist and as a businessman, he learned so much by, falling down and getting back up. Okay, this didn't work. Let me try this. Okay, that didn't work either. Let me try that. And that's just how it is. You have to continue to develop your craft or your skill, or you won't grow as an artist. So overall, did the 90s, I don't want to say suck. Was it disappointing? Overall, yeah. But that's just part of who he is. And I don't think that this catalog is his earlier stuff in the catalog is eroded by the 90s stuff at all. I think, if anything, it just enhances it even more so, because I don't want to say that was his apex or that's all he's got. But if, worst case scenario, if that is all he has, that's a hell of a body of work for anybody. So he's like Arthur said, he's playing with house money, man. He's earned his stripes. He's who he is. He's the guy. So he gets that opportunity to try other things. And I'm all about having the stones to challenge your audience anyway. I don't like the greatest hits Vegas tours. I hate them. I fucking hate them. If he would do that and then go to a smaller club and play the stuff that people don't know, that's where I'd be. Because I can go without hearing Purple Rain, Little Red Corvette again. I don't give a damn. I've heard it a million times. I want you to take me to the next level. Challenge me with Rainbow Children. Go somewhere, play that front to back. That's something I'd want to see. But in order to get to Rainbow Children, we have to travel through the peaks and valleys of Gold, Nigga, and Exodus, and so on and so forth. So and this is Prince we're talking about. He can't sit down for 10 years. He just can't do it. It's not in him. He's got to get this music out. And
the question would he be better if he did sit down?
No.
You don't think he would? I'm not saying he's not recording. I'm saying he's just not putting it out. Like,
but he's not getting feedback though. That's
Okay.
he could be getting like he could put rave together and keep it in the vault and be like, oh man, this is the one, and it leaks out and it's like, this is some bullshit. Oops. Well, let me try something else. I think it's better when he was less accessible to the media, because when Madhouse came out back in '87, I know I had to hear about it through a record store. I didn't know it was a Prince deal. All I knew was on Paisley Park. I'm like, well, he's got to be involved somehow. That's you when you lose that mystique, it kind of softens your creative edge, and that's what I think happened here. A lot of his creativity has been softened and diluted with things over time, and better is a hard word to use for that question.
Yeah, I think you said it. You nailed it though. You said mystique. If he would have sat out after Love Sexy, and the next thing he dropped 10 years later was that, the mystique would have been a motherfucker. He'd have been like,
yeah,
whoa, what? And yeah, I don't think he would have. Well, I think he would have played better because the general public were like, wow, this guy just disappeared. Now he drops this crazy. I can guarantee you the critics would have been on his nuts. Like if the last thing they heard was that, and then he was gone, and we've had all this that has went on in the music business, and then they would have been like, oh, it's over.
Mike,
go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. It's like super late for Jehan at this point.
I'm good. I'm enjoying it.
I'm sorry.
Thanks. That's cool. Don't worry. Don't worry.
You know what? With that said, let's wrap this thing up. Really, well, this is probably one of the longer shows that we've done. I want to give a special shout out to Jehan, an author, for coming on the show. Thank you, Jehan. I know it is late where you're at.
My pleasure.
Appreciate you guys coming on so much. We're a big fan. Can you guys give the website to the podcast?
Yes, themusicsnobs.com.
There you go. I think you can also find them on Facebook. The Music Snobs, definitely check that out. Again, highest recommendation that we can give here. I really love the show, so definitely check that out. Shout out the other two gentlemen that are on the show, Scoop, and what's my other guy's name? Isaac, yes, Isaac. Me and Isaac, we probably like eye to eye on just about everything. But shout out to those two. Big Ken, Big Sexy, give us the last words and we out.
Hey, it was good to be on here with the Snobs, man. I was worried we hang toe to toe with Jehan, but he's all right.
No, this was great. To get my little comic book geek here on, it was like a big Marvel DC crossover. It was great, a lot of fun.
Nice.
Totally.
Unfortunately, we missed Scoop and Isaac, but we'll catch them next time.
We're like Wu-Tang. It's hard to get us all together at one time.
And